we're going to discover what internal auditors work on in this section titled, What Internal Audit Does. So the first thing that internal auditors do is help assess and improve governance. Internal auditors help in risk management, and finally, internal auditors help maintain efficient, effective controls. Look at controls. Now, I'm not going to give you a exactly formal definition from the Institute of Internal Auditors or many others, because I think it's too complicated. And frankly, for your exam, you don't need to know it. But what are controls? Or even without the S at the end, what is internal control? So internal controls are, first of all, the controls that we see inside an organization. And controls are different processes, things that happen. Doesn't mean they're written down. It's just things that happen. So controls are different processes which help keep the organization on track to meeting its goals and objectives. You'll see goals are a bit longer term, objectives are a bit shorter term, objectives are a bit better defined, goals can be a bit vaguer, but controls are different processes that kind of help keep on track. How do internal auditors actually help maintain effective controls? Well, let's look at a little situation. We're managing a construction sector, so we're looking at different construction processes, and we're evaluating whether controls are effective and efficient. So do they have a control to avoid having head injuries? Is, wait for it, helmets. I mean, it's not very complicated, but maybe harnesses. Frankly, I don't know the construction sector, but maybe proper scaffolding, different things, and I chose this sector because it's very visual, different things that will help keep your workers safe from harm. Because one of your objectives in your organization was to keep your workers safe from harm. At least I really hope if you're a construction company, you have that as an objective. A second objective would, of course, be to say, build the building that you are building. And you might have different controls in that way. So you might have planning controls. So planning controls would help projects being completed on time. So that's your, MS project work, your Gantt charts, your different tools that you actually use to, plan the work. You'd have, for example, cost controls to make sure that costs are within budget, and so on. Huh? We promote the continuous improvement of the control environment. And I like this sentence. I like this sentence because it actually means a lot. And let's. I know it's just a little sentence about internal control, but it goes through a lot of things. So what, for instance, is the control environment? You think environment, you think, green nature and forests, right? Well, it's kind of the things that you think are around you. It's the things that aren't necessarily tangible, that you can't really grasp. So what does that mean in terms of a control environment? So if people follow proper ethical standards, they are less likely, say, to rob the construction site. If people are hired who have had background checks against criminal records, then you'd have fewer problems in securing your site, for example. There are, in control environment, you have a lot of softer elements, so such as culture. In your organization, think of it. Where does management sit? And where do the big bosses sit? Do they sit on the 7th floor, isolated from everyone else? They have their own little offices. Maybe the company secretary gets to see them from time to time, but they they don't have a public, calendar. That's one possible scenario. Or, do the company's bosses sit in an open area, or at least have an office with a fully open door and a kind of open door policy? Come on, if you have any question, always please ask me. I remember in my big four company, a partner telling me, any I was an assistant or maybe a senior at the time, but any assistant or senior who doesn't come to see me at least one time per day, is probably not motivated in their job, or probably too timid. It was kind of like not just open, but it was like actively encouraged. So that's a kind of cultural element that would go in the control environment. And do you think it's easier to have, say, easier communication in the first example I gave, where management is isolated, or the second? Well, of course it's the second, where people are easier. But that's going to mean that every single control after that is going to be influenced by the control environment. So back to this very innocent-looking sentence: we promote the continuous improvement. Second of all, continuous improvement. So that means that there is at no point where we are going to say things are absolutely perfect in the organization. We might, say give maturity levels. This is a level 5 maturity. There are only 5 levels. So this is a level 5 maturity according to the CMMI model of blah, blah, blah. And we're going to say that things aren't perfect because we can always improve. There is no absolutely world-class best practice. There's, the ironic thing is that the best practice is always moving. So, and finally, we promote. Are we implementing the control environment? Well, I mean, we might say a few good things about ethics and risk management. We're definitely not putting in place, but we as internal auditors have a role in saying these things are important. We support these concepts of ethics and risk management and internal controls. We try to push towards always getting better, including in the control environment. So how do internal auditors help maintain effective controls? And here, this is the non-intuitive part, which is why I spend so much time. A lot of the effort of internal auditors is actually on building those softer parts of the control environment. We identify how to improve controls. Well, yeah, I mean, we're performing our different assessments of the internal controls, and we're trying to find, we're working with the business often to see how to improve them. If you put me on a construction site, and quite frankly, when I was working in my energy sector, I had maybe just one day on a construction site with some more knowledgeable consultants than myself. We're bringing about how to improve the controls on the construction site. Huh?